The commission some years ago appointed Lynn and Dan to study varying kinds of things that were of neighborhood interest, and we have been looking with them for quite a while at dumpsters in residential areas and screening them and various ways to make the town look a little better. And I think the commission has had or has seen and referred to the planning commission some engineering drawings that we put together that show a screening either by wood fence or composition or natural fence, any residential dumpster that may occur. What we knew in looking at it is that if implemented would be a several $1,000s cost to property owners if they were trying to retain their dumpster. As we got looking at it a little more most recently, and then as a result of comments that I'll make in item B in a minute, it became at least the possibility that if we emphasized again the polycart pickup more aggressively and did not or prohibited residents from sharing dumpsters across property lines. So if you have 3 or 4 residents in a row, instead of combining those and having a very large unsightly dumpster, you had a series of polycarts, that it would be significantly cheaper for the folks who were getting garbage hauled away and would not be perhaps as unsightly in neighborhoods as garbage boxes fill up and overflow.
Would everyone have to take a polycart if they didn't want to?
I don't know the complete answer to that. It would be at no cost, so
I understand.
I don't know that that's a negative. He did comment in the meeting that we were with him that we have unlimited residential pickup. So that would dominate the can in which you are disposing your garbage, but there would certainly be some pressure applied to have everybody use polycarts.
Well, it takes a special truck, and obviously if they invest in the truck and the more polycarts that they pick up with it, it's more economical for them to do so. But I do know from the previous study, there's also certain sections in town that they wouldn't be able to take that truck down to pick up the polycarts, if I remember correctly.
There was some discussion of alleys and the difficulty of getting polycarts to a back alley and some of the overhead wires.
That was it.
But Todd commented again in the meeting that we were at that he was satisfied that they could move 20 feet in one direction or another and work with pretty much every resident to make sure that they could pick up the polycart.
The added language to section 50.03 says residential sharing of dumpsters would be phased out. It's the sharing that would be phased out. There could still be dumpsters used in a residential area.
Yes.
Subject to screening and other criteria that surround them.
Yeah. Well, there's no screening criteria right now. The study that we did, there were I think 56 residential dumpsters, and 50 of them were shared. The economics of it would be cheaper to have multiple polycarts than it would be to share boxes. So one presumes that most folks would opt for the cheaper pickup number, and so by far and large the majority of the the boxes would disappear in favor of polycarts. So if there were 60,
you assume, but
right.
The reality could be some would elect to keep their
Yes.
dumpster in a residential area. They just can't share that one dumpster with 2 or more
properties.
Adjacent residences.
Right.
Okay.
What does the city hope to gain by not allowing the sharing of the dumpsters? Where people share dumpsters, has it created problems in the sharing? Or is it just a way that you think that it's a way to get rid of the dumpsters and people will use polycarts? I mean, why is this such a big issue?
I think in a residential area, you're looking at aesthetics to begin with. And I know you can talk if you like, and certainly Don points out with some accuracy the size of the dumpsters that some property owners have elected is certainly ample, perhaps over ample, so that as folks move in and move out, there are, there's not plenty of space because they often overflow even the dumpster on move-in, move-out days. So I don't know how really accurate that comment is, but if one would presume that there's 6 or 7 people living in a 3-unit complex, that's not a whole lot different than a fairly large family in a similar house. And they can certainly get along with 2 95-gallon polycarts if they're aggressively recycling as well as having trash. So I think one of the things that's happening is as dumpsters are there is some amount of traffic from perhaps rural areas or folks that don't have effective pickup to use alleys and deposit their garbage in a nice big dumpster as opposed to a polycart, which would be pulled back off the street next to the house when it's not garbage pickup day. So I don't think any of us know with great accuracy how much is really picked up from that one unit or one apartment or one house, and how much is being carted in or generated from other places. But this is being thought of not as we're going to totally eliminate the garbage boxes, but if you're in a residential area and you're looking across the street, and most of us would rather see a polycart, nicely tucked into a house than a big metal box.
Yeah, and I understand everything you said. I'm not really sure if you really answered my question.
Okay.
Because the rule always was in the treasurer's office and with neighborhood services, if it did create an issue, they could share a dumpster. One property is going to be billed for the dumpster. We're not splitting the cost and putting it on 2 or 3 different bills. If it becomes a problem, then you can't share it anymore. And it's always better to see one dumpster than 2 dumpsters, or one dumpster instead of 3 dumpsters. So I go back to my original question. What you're saying is you'd like to see more polycarts because you think it's more pleasing to the eye. But taking away the sharing of the dumpsters isn't necessarily going to do that. So have there been issues with the sharing of the dumpsters? Is that why you're pushing for this?
Well, I think most people make economic decisions too. And we have, over the past 3 or 4 years, been making polycarts more and more economically feasible over dumpsters. If we can bid this and the polycarts are suddenly at no additional rental cost, and boxes continue to be at some substantial cost, then I think many of them will go away just on sheer economics.
And maybe another thought as this goes back for further review before it comes before the commission is, if someone like the neighborhood services director had the discretion to allow for the sharing of dumpsters in appropriate circumstances that he or she may determine exist. It's a little bit of a gamble when you leave things at discretion versus it's a blanket policy that everybody's supposed to follow, but at the same time, the current ordinance does allow the director to require polycarts if he or she makes a determination that the amount of refuse or the size or some other factors make it necessary to do so. So maybe there could be a bit of a tempering of phasing out entirely shared dumpsters. You can still encourage people to use polycarts by lowering or eliminating the cost. But maybe there's something to be said by allowing the Director of Neighborhood Services to also investigate a situation and perhaps make the determination that sharing of a dumpster, even in a residential setting, might be the most appropriate use. So maybe keep that in mind too as you go back to staff and revisit this before it comes to the commission.